Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for coming to ICC's Contact Center Metrics That Matters webinar. Our presenters today will be Mohan Nair and Patrick Botts from VPI Corporation. And just an overview of the webinar today, Mohan will be exploring tactics and strategies that most organizations use when devising a tangible management system involving contact center metrics. He will cover the most commonly used in high-performance organizations to drive revenue, increase the overall customer experience while building customer loyalty. He will discuss how some of these strategies have yielded hard savings to the bottom line while engaging frontline employees and their line managers. A case study of a real-life contact center will be studied and how you can incorporate some of these into your program. Patrick will elaborate further with details on these metrics that links these metrics to any contact center environment with the application designed to drive performance with the relative ease. He will be able to walk you through some of the features of the application that will enable an organization to focus on these metrics for ongoing coaching and staff development. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mohan and Patrick. And before we start, I'm just going to read you a little bit about Mohan's background. And any questions you may have, you can also enter it into the question window in the bottom of your screen there. Mohan has been involved with the international contact center community for the past 20 years with cutting-edge and innovative companies like Lenovo Asia, HSBC Global Resourcing, Microsoft, UPS, CIBC, and Zurich Insurance. He started as a customer service agent and quickly moved to become a team leader, sales coach, and workforce management analyst within a short period of time, and then moved on to senior manager roles in Canada. He was most recently the Director of Customer Delight Programs at Lenovo Services in Singapore. Prior to that, he was the Vice President of HSBC Global Resourcing located in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. Mohan is a graduate of the University of Southern Queensland, Australia, and holds an MBA from this prestigious School of Business. He's also a certified Lean Six Sigma Black Belt holder and was a project leader in contact centers that generated cost savings and increased sales revenues for multinational organizations worth approximately $12 million US over the past 5 years. He's very passionate about continuous improvement strategies for contact centers using human capital and innovative technology as key levers in the new frontier. He has delivered keynote speeches to audiences on unique strengths and benefits of contact centers within an organization. His key messages touch on the understanding of Lean Six Sigma methods and leverage the 4 pillars in building customer loyalty and intimacy, which are people, process, technology, and last but not least, strategy. So please welcome Mohan.
Thank you very much, Prem. Welcome everybody. This beautiful Thursday here in Toronto. I'd like to welcome our world to me over the last few years, which is really called Center Metrics. And as you all know, the last few years we've seen a focus on the contact center playing a more pivotal role in an organization. It's traditionally moving from a cost center into a profit center. Some of the key takeaways that I'd like to talk about today would be basic concepts of some of the contact center metrics that are out there and integrating existing metrics and new metrics that you may want to consider into your contact center, and defining any business rules for taking a look at the center results that is strategically aligned to your organizational goals. And differentiating the key elements between activity versus outcome-based metrics, and helping you assist your teams in designing and implementing a scorecard or a sheet for you to review during your operational meetings. And some of the key elements on these strategies will be two lean concepts and continuous improvement cycle. So without further ado, what I'm going to do is go on to the key objectives in the new economy where budgets are being tightened and productivity and efficiencies are starting to become at the forefront, especially in contact centers, although organizations are also focusing on that. And this is where the opportunity is in contact centers in leveraging the situation that we are currently in globally. And having said that, we want to make sure that we're increasing revenues for our departments and making the contact center relevant in today's economy, while at the same time reducing costs, waste, any redundant processes that have no longer impact or adding any value to the contact center, your employees, your processes. So here's a great opportunity to revisit and review some of those legacy systems when you're considering upgrading to a new technology or an application. Fundamentally, we live in a world where we want to ensure that market share and customers keep coming to us and increasing the opportunity to sell and enhance the customer experience. Where today their opportunities are limitless. We live in a world today where borders and distance are significantly reduced versus the time in the 80s or even in the 70s. Business and capital are flowing to areas with lower cost, and where else than to take a look, if you're a CEO or CFO, to take a look at the opportunity of the contact center to leverage and to be a real strategic partner in the organization. So here's an opportunity to leverage your skill sets and the knowledge base that your teams have gathered. It'll cause disruptions in other areas, but not all of it is bad. So stay focused on the customer experience, and we'll help share some ideas and some best practices. The realities of today's business environment has shifted dramatically, and no one is untouched by the downturn in the last 2 years. However, in spite of these challenges, as I visited organizations and talked to key people, the front lines and senior managers, they're still seeing high-producing companies, high-performing companies, and enthusiasm, although it's a little subtle, but it's starting to pick up again. One of the key elements that I noticed as we're looking at today's realities in the business environment, what sets the peak performers from their contemporaries or their peers is their stubbornness and their persistent faith in a brighter future for the contact center, for themselves, for their careers, and their desire to control their own destiny, and the ability to find an opportunity even in a very tough economic situation. So I'm going to share some of these strategies to help jumpstart any bottlenecks you may have within your contact center strategy. Some of the key CEOs and key people, this is a recent study, they have actually commented on some of the trends that they've seen, and they're more focused in rallying their staff and teams to take a look at the continuous improvement cycle. Now, this has been quite challenging at times, and one of the CEOs have actually talked about social media coming in as well to consumer behavior and viral marketing. These were key words that are being used now as opposed to a decade ago, and the rise of the informed and knowing consumer prior to them contacting you at the contact center. So we need to leverage new technology, new channels of distribution to make sure that our customer base doesn't defect and go to the competition. And being innovative, and a company that I admire a lot, trying to create that enthusiasm as you're going through this process of creating a scorecard or metrics or any process to make sure that innovation thrives in your center and to challenge old paradigms. And that's where the opportunity is. And again, some of the concepts that we hold so dear, the values of making sure that your scorecard has visibility across the organization so that they can actually champion some of your efforts and even fund some of your critical efforts. Some of the definitions with regards to contact center management is again fundamental, having the right number of people and resources at the correct times to handle the forecast with quality and service levels. Now, having said that, one of the key thinkers out there has also talked about, Michael Porter has talked about making sure that you maintain your competitive advantage and protecting it using some of these strategies. So without further ado, I'd like to share some of those tactics with you and move into a case study that I've been part of in the past, where we've actually leveraged the data to provide some meaningful insights to the operations teams and the senior management to make some improvements. Traditional reporting within a contact center, you have data residing in many different areas, and there's a plethora of reports, data that's out there that is unrealized by people within the organization. If they only knew the amount of information that a particular agent has at the power of their fingertips, or the operations manager, that's where the aha moment comes. So please give yourself a pat on the back and really work together with your IT departments to try and make sure that you take a look at some of the reports to see if you actually need them and to upgrade them accordingly to your channels, and try and partner to make sure that you have a scorecard that is meaningful for your superiors. Critical data points for some of these data that are actually coming in. If you take a look, there are so many areas. Fundamentally, when you take a look, where I found in some of the areas of fine-tuning performance, fundamentally it comes down to resources. Yes, technology is also important, but technology can only be programmed to ensure that we have a strategy. So as you're devising your scorecard, you know, we have these three pillars: people, process, and technology. It always starts with people within a contact center. So leveraging the talents within your teams is critical. Secondly, it's very important to have a process that is sound, that supports your organization and your contact center. And third is the technology. Upgrading is not really a bad idea, but is the technology relevant to your business need, and to make sure that the technology actually is an enabler for your people on the front lines. Before these three pillars are actually put in place, one has to have a strategy. So what is your strategy? What is the CEO strategy? And to make sure that the alignment of that strategy is really critical for you and for your success. And developing these scorecards gives your superiors visibility to the type of work your teams are doing, and also to support you and to fund whatever projects that you need funding for. So you would be making an excellent business case for your contact center teams. One of the key elements we talk about change is, we do have some areas where just researching high-performance companies and companies that are on the fast growth, they're blazing their path to prosperity by actually refusing to accept the current paradigm or the previous paradigm because competition is so fast. So one of the key things to remove facilities, it'll be really important for your team. And here's the challenge, here's the opportunity, is to take a look with your teams to figure out what we need to do to remove, flatten, and consolidate all this data. And break it down to some key metrics. Where is it reduce cost per context, where cost is an issue? Is it to reduce complaints or defections to the competition? Is it increasing customer satisfaction scores or net promoter scores? Perhaps even employee scores. So it's a ongoing process where you have to put together with your teams to figure out what is really important for them, and are we asking the right questions. So I'm going to be helping in this program to put together a business case. So let's take a look at building a scorecard or a dashboard or a chart for your team. Start with the agent in mind, start with the end in mind, like Kavi talks about it, is to really put also in the shoes of your employees, is to also put the customer out there. What are the type of customers, as we are segmenting our customer base? Not all customers are equal. What are we looking at? If you care, or if your organization, if your contact center vision is, if you care about wait for service, then you should appropriately measure service levels. And what are they? You know, average speed of answer is critical for them to get a live agent in less than 10 seconds. Abandonment rate. This is another key metric that is critical to see how are we serving our customers. I know a top 5-star restaurant looks at people that wait for the serving of their meals. Response times, very important. Number of contacts, average talk time, average handle time by media. You can even segment it by media. As you know, there's a shift where the all-knowing, discerning, critically thinking consumer is going more into the media, where they use the phone to interact with the agent less and less. I know I certainly do. I do a lot of self-serving when I go to the bank machine or booking an airline ticket. So these are areas that you can see if their trend is shifting more to e-commerce or the internet channel. And employee work is also critical, because earlier on I talked about the people, process, and technology. The largest resource in your budget are, of course, payroll and employee work. So work-life balance does have an impact. I've seen contact centers that have very high talk times and very high occupancy rates and burnout rates, and the availability of the agent to take or make a call. So this is one area of opportunity. I tell some of my clients, focus on that, and which will yield a lot of results. And walk into the case study in the next few slides to explain this phenomena that very quickly saved the organization $20,000 in less than 3 months. The other thing that's a rule of thumb, and that's why we're in business, is quality. Customer satisfaction is critical in today's economy where everything is equal. I think that is the main element that differentiates the peak performers in my research, is really providing customer satisfaction and really delighting the customer that they keep coming back and actually referring friends and family to your business. And first, call resolution. This has come up on the radar for the last couple of years, that I've noticed a trend in terms of understanding what first call resolution is. Obviously, it is a key metric. Otherwise, people would not be talking about it and being passionate about that. Even if you don't get a high first call resolution, it does not guarantee customer satisfaction. And this is one of the key elements we talk about, where people say that we're great at first call resolution. However, you need to use other, what I call secondary metrics, to see if the complaints, if the occupancy and the abandonment rate validates that story. And the last but not the least is, obviously, we're running a business that focuses on the financial elements of running the business. Is really the cost of telephony charges, sales capture rates, upsell, cross-sell, if you're working in a sales environment. If you're working in a back office or in a cost supporting environment, then these are things that you can take a look at and see which channel is starting to see spike in volumes. Having said that, these are some things that you may want to consider in your developing or designing a scorecard or a dashboard. Going back to the first call resolution, one of the key surveys that came out about 2 years ago in terms of first call resolution by industry. There's not a lot of research out there, but I'm starting to find more data out there, and a lot of companies are actually starting to measure, and Patrick will get into details in terms of some of the innovative programs that his organization is doing, and that really piqued my interest, is trying to understand this metric. What does that mean? How does it impact customer satisfaction? How does this impact my employees and my bottom line? So initial findings told me by industry it varies. If you're working a tech support kind of role, obviously first call resolution on the list, and you don't want to be calling back on the same issue or problem. Secondly, if you're working for a utility customer service, that also is important. So, these are kind of what I call baselines as I teach Lean Six Sigma practices and methods to some of my clients. We need to have a starting point, a baseline, peers in the industry, my contemporaries. Where do I stand? Am I best in class or not? And then that's where I try and take a look at some of these meaningful research data out there. Moving on to the breaking down of all the metrics that we have within the contact center, the activity-based metrics that are pretty much fundamental in running an optimized contact center. You have average handle time, average speed of answer, number of calls, the error rate, or quality of input into a particular transaction. Adherence to schedule, this is also very critical to make sure that you have the adequate number of people and are they adhering to schedule. This is a non-negotiable in some companies, and obviously from the employee satisfaction rate or the burnout rate, this metric, there's a direct correlation in my research and in other companies as well. Talking to my peers in the industry, occupancy rates. Traditionally, it has been less than 70, between 70 and 80%. Anything more than 70, 75%, that's something that you want to keep your eye on. Are we burning our reps too fast, too soon? And we want to make sure the average life of a frontline rep, depending on the industry, is about 2 to 3 years. And the occupancy rate has a direct correlation to attrition, to turnover, to employee dissatisfaction. That's one metric to keep an eye out for. Outcome-based metrics, these are what I call lagging or leading indicators. You would be able to use this to gauge the secondary metrics to see if they align to your organization goals and to your team goals. Obviously, a collection department would have different measurement as opposed to a sales marketing team within your contact center. So the outcome-based metrics, what are we measuring? What does the customer tell us out there? And obviously, again, first call resolution pops up. Transfer rates pop up again with regards to how we handle those transfers to our internal department, whether it's credit collections, etc. Net Promoter Score. These are indicators of how satisfied or what is the likelihood of that particular customer to promote or talk about your brand, talk about your product, talk about the service. And I will say this again, Prem and Patrick know about this. I'm very passionate about Southwest Airlines. I just can't get over this company, how they do business, and I tell people about it. And same thing with Disney World. Then we take a look at abandonment rate, which again links to occupancy as well. Contribution and business intelligence are segments that give you a gauge for if your metrics are aligned in your scorecards. Summarizing this slide, I would say if you have these elements in your scorecard, this would give you visibility to what the noise is out there or what the pain points for your customers in trying to reach out to you. And what tactics you can take to develop a scorecard to help looking at the other secondary metrics. And again, this is a rule of thumb. Service level, Monday morning service level in some industries are relatively low and all hands on deck. And as long as your service level agreements are not unreasonable and you have negotiated in your contract with the vendor or the client, you want to make sure that the service level speaks to the vision of the CEO, the organization, and to not penalize the frontline agents or your operations team. So it's very critical to understand, especially sales and marketing folks or senior managers, when you're taking a look at service level agreements with your vendors and your other providers, internal or external. Average speed of answer could be a metric to give you visibility how quick they're answering, but not necessarily how well they're answering it. There's some loyal customers like me who would wait on the line to speak to somebody at Southwestern. I have no problem if you answer it quick or if you answer it more than a minute. So it, again, depends on your relationship with your customer. Abandonment rates, we've already talked about that. Keep a very eye on that because that is an indicator for what's going wrong, whether it's the design of your IVR. Some people, like my brothers, they don't like being on the IVR or going through a maze of selections in the IVR. First menu. Anything more than that, Mohan, you're not doing a good job. I don't need to keep you. It sounded like Donald Trump, but it's very important to make sure that you understand what the CEO is passionate about and to design your IVR, design your internet portals to make sure that the customer experience is a positive one. And again, we talked about occupancy and availability of agents. The rule of thumb is between 70 to 75%. Anything beyond that, you will see burnout. Now, some of the key metrics traditionally, most of the frontline agents are measured. It hasn't changed when I was an agent a couple of years ago. We talk about quality, the handle time, schedule adherence. Again, these are standards, and I'm sure your organization, your contact center is also using this to measure the performance of the employee. I'm going to go into a case study where we did of an organization where they had issues with controlling the average handle time. And what I did was we embarked on this project to study this to see where some of the pain points were in terms of seeing the different states a particular agent or a group of agents were using. As you can tell, most of the reps were performing in general around reasonable levels, but the average handle time should not be looked in isolation. You need to break it down into its different elements, and you can find that most agents were using the after-call work inappropriately. And over a period of time, we undertook this study back in October, and we actually started to drill down and understand the behaviors and put together certain training elements and certain technological improvements in our IVR and the way we track our performers and role modeling them in a positive way. What we found was we saw that a reduction in the after-call work and a reduction in the after-call work and an increase in the actual sales revenue. So this is very critical. What I'm going to do is, before I go to the next slide, what I'm going to ask the audience what metrics you currently use so that I can quickly go on to the next few slides. So Patrick, if you be, Prem, if you'd be kind enough to post that poll out there, and we'll go on to the next slide. Sorry about that. Really passionate.
Okay, great. I'm going to be sending out the poll right now.
Thank you, Prem.
Not a problem.
And we were taking a look at the back office team in terms of understanding where they were in terms of the saw that most of the agents were not really logging in under staff time, you'll see, and they were not really focusing on speaking to our internal customers for applications or errors in applications submitted by the sales teams or the different branches out there. And we started to understand that there was, here was an opportunity because the aux work and the after-call work were relatively normalized, but there was a problem with regards to how they were logging in their times. And we quickly corrected that behavior around December, January to ensure that, if they were not logged in, then it would give us, who are analyzing the data, a wrong read on why they need to leave their workstation and go to the next floor or the next area to find out the documentation that was missing. So,
sorry to interrupt you, Mohan. Mohan.
Go ahead.
While the poll is going on, they wouldn't be able to see your presentation. So
okay.
If you want, I can close the poll, or if you want to give it a few more minutes. We have 74% of the people have voted.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So we'll give it another 10 seconds for people to put in their poll answers, and then we'll close the poll.
Okay, great. Thanks, Bram.
Not a problem. Okay, so I'll be closing the poll right now.
Thank you. So for the back office team, what we did was this slide actually gave us a read into some of the things that was giving a perception to the senior managers that the back office team was not working. They were just logging in and getting, paid, and they were not at their workstations. So what we did was we took a look at the previous months and started to see what were some of the behaviors as I was on the floor doing my observations and key recommendations. So it's really important to understand the behaviors that actually give you the results, because some of the agent states drive those results, and oftentimes senior managers tend to react to a particular condition or phenomena. Oftentimes, in my research, that's not the case. We just need to give the understanding to a group of agents or a group of team leaders as to what we're looking for in a collaborative way. And we took a look at service levels, and as you can see over the year, service levels in the summer were being satisfied, while the spring and what were we doing well in June, July, August? Can we duplicate that phenomena, that behavior? Whereas abandonment rate had a trend line that was relatively high than most of the centers that I've been in. And as you can see, there's a correlation between when the service factor was high, the abandonment rate was low. Where the telephone service factor, service levels were low, the abandonment rate was high. So there is a correlation, and using some simulation and using some algorithms within our data that we gathered, we were able to understand that there were some inherent issues with the way the technology was assisting the frontline rep. So that was corrected. Secondly, the IVR was too difficult for some clients to reach us during the weekends and during peak hours. The third factor, which was critical, that was causing the problem in the first half of the year, was staffing and training. So once we identified the root causes, we were able to replicate positive actions that came out in the summer, last summer. However, it took a dip in September where some of these summer students went back to college. So again, the cycle again repeated itself. So it's very critical for senior managers and for your team to take a look at a few months of data rather than looking at the particular week of the incident or particular month. So that's my advice to your team. And again, linking that story, the case study, I'm talking about where we had to educate our CFO in terms of why, when he signed up for a very high service level, we needed 14 staff to 15 staff to get the service level that he signed up with the sales and marketing team. However, we had about 10 staff that were manning that particular line, so obviously we were set up to fail. So resist the temptation to please everybody and have high service levels at the cost of not hiring adequately or funding the headcount properly. So having said that, I'll go to the next slide where we actually broke down and did a critical analysis to see where we were hurting that was impacting the metrics. And during these times, we had the red areas where most of our opportunities were, where people were calling. And for the most part, we were doing okay. But the critical areas where people were being serviced in the Pacific Coast and the West Coast and in the East Coast in some areas, we were staffing for the Central Time and Mountain Time, but we were not really focusing on the West Coast. And no, Patrick, that doesn't often happen with most companies. Patrick lives in the West Coast. We have a joke about that, but we service nationwide all our customers in the same level, regardless. So this is very critical to understand if you have a breakdown by shift. The other opportunity was this case study where we looked at, before we started this project, the after-call work was very high. So the average handle time was not, looking at the average handle time as we broke it down to the different elements, the after-call work was 10 to 12% of the average talk time. And I said that, I mean, take a look at Agent V and Agent T. They were exceedingly high, and when we took a look and understood their work process, what they were doing additional project work, and that was impacting the whole team. So it wasn't their fault. They were just not taught to go on to a different state. So it's very important to see if you're remunerated or your compensation rides on these metrics. When we did that, we still had Agent V, T, and S at a very high after call work, but they were actually on the phone with more difficult, complex sales calls that required their assistance in processing the application, whereas the other agents were doing lesser type of customer care sales type calls, and we were able to bring down the overall average to just 10%, which was important for that team. Ideally, I would have liked to have taken agent VT SNR to another queue, but that wasn't possible in this particular client's case. So just that reduction, we were able to save a significant amount on the telephony costs. In terms of true calls per hour, there was an opportunity here to make sure that you will have some agents that are not taking enough calls, but overall we saw that agents were able to increase their calls per hour significantly as this project took on. The next piece is really taking a look at the forecast accuracy, which is a metric that I measure myself or measure my team in terms of doing the quality checks. Sometimes the forecast is off and we don't have the right amount of people, and the quality suffers as a result. So is to really keep an eye out for this metric. I find this very interesting to see how my forecasting team is doing in addition to the frontline agent. So it kind of like takes the heat off the frontline team. Here's a sample dashboard that we did when we went into senior managers teams. When we went into presentations, we can take a look broken down. You have a target. You can break it down by secondary metrics, primary metrics. You can take a look at logistics, field service, contact centers, and just a few key metrics for each channel. You'll be able to see by quarter, by region, or by site how they're doing. And this is very important for a senior manager to at least take a look at the problem areas and provide his or her insight in terms of how they can assist you and your team. Oftentimes it's usually funding, headcount, technology, opportunities to help you. So this case or a business case that you're going to be making really rides on your dashboard. So spend a little bit of time. If you can come up with something similar to this, it'll help your business case in the contact center as well, and your staff will love you. Here's another type where we took a look at other areas, and this was one area that gave me a lot of excitement to work on, because I worked with a lot of cross-functional teams that I really understood, and we used that not only in our operations meeting but also in our financial meetings as well. This was what I call a drill down to the earlier slide, where this one actually tells me more detail. This is more operational focused, where it tells you how your team is doing, but the top part is the customer experience. It tells sales and marketing, because obviously we invite them to these meetings to see how well or how not so well we're doing. And we measure complaints per million transactions, so we get this SATS or Net Promoter Score. So this is all inclusive. It gives visibility to a lot of areas, and this is where the collaborative effort helped bring teams together. And again, when you're taking a look at developing that to try and build your dashboard or try and build your scorecard, try and have a process owner who can actually help champion that. And we talk about keeping it simple, but in my experience, simplicity can be quite elusive. It's a management concept, but again, this is where having a project team to determine who owns what and have some alignment with other stakeholders as you're building out your scorecard. And again, the results from this will actually give your team the ability, the level of service increases, the profitability will go up, and the costs will start to show a decrease because of the results and the forethought and the planning that your team in concert with other stakeholders. And here's a great opportunity for training and coaching. It is really a part of a new work culture as we know it. And it really builds facts. There's no anecdotal experiences here. So the people that are going to be coming to the table are going to be excited and signing up to this. So here's the question I want to put out there in addition to the poll question. Thank you very much for attending. Is really to ask yourself, do you have some time to consider this over the weekend? Is there a business model out there to transform your industry? And is it more likely to come from you within the contact center or your competitors out there? And when customer preferences shift, are you the first to understand why? Or do your competitors react and address this quicker than you do? And here's the key element, and part of this is the legacy systems that are more intelligent in terms of routing calls, routing transactions to gain more valuable customer insight, and using that insight to, again, fine-tune and develop. So it's like a cycle that keeps going and going, and it's a continuous improvement cycle. Another question that I want to throw out there is really what metric is important within your contact center, and why is that important? And how is that relevant as it relates to your customers and as it relates to your frontline agents? And I've said this in many of my presentations. We cannot look at data as a static condition. You have to look at these in relationship to things within the contact center, to events. And this is very important. When you tweak one thing, it has a drastic impact on another metric, on another activity. There is a cascading effect, whether it's attrition, whether it's turnover, and that's one of those things that we need to really consider. It's all about the data, and it's all about taking the data and putting together a compelling story in your scorecard, in your dashboard, to make sure that when you release that to your senior management, they have been very helpful in trying to help their staff. So having said that, I wanted to thank you for your attendance today. I feel very happy that you were able to make this presentation, and I turn it over to Prem.
Thank you, Mohan. The next up will be Patrick Botts, and he will be speaking to you about the details I mentioned earlier. And I'm just going to patch this over to Patrick right now.
Great. Thank you so much, Mohan and Prem, for that wonderful introduction and wonderful presentation. Very excited to have you on the training course today, and look forward to digging deeper into some of the key metrics that Mohan referenced, and show you some innovative solutions to help you really rapidly optimize those metrics and use your existing resources to help optimize those. So just a little bit before we get started, for those of you who don't know about us, I've been with VPI for 7 years now, and as a company we've been helping companies capture and analyze interactions from multiple channels for several years. And we have over 1,300 customers since 1994 in 50 countries throughout the world. And we partner with the various technology leaders. So we make sure that integrating with your current systems and your future systems is easy. We were the first ones to develop ready-to-use software solutions. So we partner not only with our customers closely, but closely with analysts such as Gartner, Ventana Research, Frost & Sullivan, Saddletree, and others to figure out what are the key issues and metrics that you're really interested in improving. What are those critical metrics? And we build those into our system. We build solutions for improving those metrics into our system. So it makes it easy for you. And if you want to customize things, it's easy to do that as well. So we build that in so you can use clicks as a business user to solve those issues and not have to rely on code or IT for any of that. And we really pride ourselves on exceptional service and support. That's one thing that we really, our foundation is built on. These are just some of our customers. I won't go into detail here, but we do provide solutions targeted to a variety of industries. So we've built in solutions directly targeted to various industries, and we're not just kind of this one-size-fits-all solution. I wanted to further talk about the metrics that matter. Mohan mentioned activity-based or efficiency-based metrics versus outcome-based metrics. Some of the more process-based metrics, and this is a recent survey, similar to the poll we just conducted, but we did a survey of 365 contact center executives and asked them what metrics they track. So of the activity-based metrics, you can see the majority of organizations are tracking average talk time, quality assurance scores, average after-call work time, and this is in line with the poll results as well. Number of call handles, number of quality evaluations, and so forth. But we're really seeing a shift towards outcome or effectiveness metrics, like Mohan mentioned. These metrics are really key, such as first contact resolution. We're going to spend quite a bit of time going through how to really accurately measure first contact resolution and how to improve first contact resolution. 70% of all first contact resolution initiatives fail, and the customers don't really see a result or a change. It's really due to poor execution or poor implementation of the findings. So a lot of people are measuring first contact resolution, but it is one of those metrics that does take quite a bit of targeted training and targeted resources from other departments, not just within the contact center, to improve. We'll get into how to optimize handle time, right? So you can see average talk time is a big one, average after-call work time, number of calls transferred, number of calls put on hold, number of calls handled. We have a very unique solution for optimizing handle time, which has proven to be very effective. And we'll get into improving sales and collections as well. So wanted to start with first contact resolution, and Mohan mentioned that this is one of the key metrics, and one of the key reasons is it is the highest correlated measure to customer satisfaction of all the metrics. Customer sat is 35% lower when a second call is made. So recent research has found that every 1% gain in your first contact resolution translates into a 1% gain in customer satisfaction. So that is huge. And I know voice of the customer and customer satisfaction are major initiatives, as we can see by the poll results as well. Those are key initiatives, and FCR is one of the quickest ways to improve customer satisfaction. Another stat, 34% of customers who don't get their inquiry resolved are likely to go to a competitor. So that's a big difference between the 3% that will go to a competitor if their call is resolved on a first contact. So huge difference there. The other big impact that FCR has is on operational costs, right? So it's estimated that 66% of contact center costs are due to callbacks, which is a huge amount of cost, right? The amount of resources necessary to handle callbacks or repeat contacts, and you'll see this shift from first call resolution to first contact resolution is really due to what Mohan was talking to, is the multi-channel interaction experience, and now customers are contacting us through multiple ways: web chat, email, web self-service. So we're factoring all those different channels into the calculations, and we're trying to improve all those channels when we try to improve FCR. The cost of a complaint call not handled at the point of entry escalates by 500% when it has to be escalated. So these are some pretty alarming numbers here, and that's why so many organizations are focusing on FCR and really trying to improve it. But as I mentioned before, it's measuring it is one thing, but the action needed to improve it is where a lot of organizations are falling down, and we'll get into some of those solutions. At this point, Prem, I'd like to launch a poll on how you're currently measuring first contact resolution, if you are, and appreciate your input, and we'd like to share those results with others as well.
Okay, great. I'm going to be launching that right now.
All right, we'll give it 30 more seconds.
We get about 50% of the people voted so far.
All right.
We're at about 70% of the people have voted.
All right. And not everyone is measuring FCR, so appreciate everyone's input and look forward to seeing the results.
Some people are still voting right now.
All right.
Okay, I think that's about it. So I'll close the poll right now, and then I'll publish.
All right. Could you show the result?
Yeah. Are you able to see that?
Yeah, great. It looks like a wide variety of methods currently being used for first contact resolution. Looks like the number one method is call quality monitoring, and followed closely behind by calculation from a CRM or customer system. And then surveys seem to be pretty popular as well. And then having agent influence on whether it was solved or not. These are some of the traditional methods and current methods being used to measure FCR, and wanted to go into some of the pros and cons of each of those methods. This is a recent survey that has similar results to what we just saw. But some of the pros and cons of, yeah, let me, yeah, you can move the poll result. Okay,
it's gone.
All right, so some of the pros and cons of each of those methods. calculating from a CRM system, what's nice is it's objective, right? So you're going to get consistent results, consistent reporting over time. But it can be expensive, and it can take a lot of resources. A lot of companies try to assign internal resources to develop these reports, and it's very difficult to take action on. So in many cases, you have your reports, but they're not linked to the call recordings. It's very difficult to set up drill downs. Some of our customers do have drill downs from those types of reports, but oftentimes it's a completely separate process to drill down and determine the root cause from those reports, and then to take action on it, to assign coaching, training, things like that. It's a different workflow process. So these are often separate reports that give you information, trending information over time. But in order to make that actionable, that's where a lot of organizations fall down when using calculations from customer systems. The most popular in this group, random call quality monitoring. And when I say random, most organizations today are typically using random quality evaluation. So they're selecting 3 to 5 agents or 3 to 5 calls per agent per month or something along those lines. And it's based on a very random small sample, which you can't really make accurate decisions on. Oftentimes it's time insensitive, so supervisors or QA analysts will evaluate those calls, at the end of the month, at the end of the week, and by then it's difficult to really drill down and take action immediately with random quality monitoring. And then one of the other more popular methods being used is customer survey. Similar to call quality monitoring, you're getting a random sample of customers. So, if you have a response rate of 20 to 30% on your post-contact surveys or recent contact surveys, that's a high percentage, but it's still a lower response rate, and you're getting a rate, right? So you're getting an FCR rate. You can't determine the FCR on every contact. And just like with call quality monitoring, that customer could say, yeah, my issue was solved, my billing issue was solved, and they can call back a day later. They could even call back an hour later or a few minutes later and have an issue. So they may call back 15 days later and get when they get their bill in the mail, and at that point, that issue really wasn't resolved. They thought it was resolved by the agent, but then they're still getting the wrong address or whatever it was on that bill, and they have to call in again. So, it's great oftentimes we think we resolved it, but we really didn't resolve it. So those are some of the, the cons with using some of these traditional methods for FCR. Wanted to introduce you to a new technology that is really revolutionizing the way we're measuring metrics within the contact center and tying those to actionable improvements. And if you haven't heard about it already, it's a technology called desktop analytics, or you may have heard it as screen analytics. But it's a very powerful, easy to implement solution that essentially takes any value or event from your agent's application. So whether it's a web application or a Windows-based application, it will take any values you want from the screen and tag it to your recorded interactions. So you may want customer ID, you may want case ID, sales or collections values. You may want, if you take credit card information, as you can see by the red line here, it can notice when you enter a segment of the call where there's sensitive credit card information being populated. And then it can also notice when that part of the call is ended. So if any of you are taking credit cards and have to comply with PCI compliance, this is a very powerful solution for that as well. Not necessarily a metric, but a way to, upon playback, if you have rights or roles, depending on your rights, we can mask out the video, the screen recording, and mute out the audio at that point. So very powerful solution for PCI compliance, HIPAA compliance, anything where there's sensitive information and you don't want to replay segments of the call to people who don't have access or rights to that sensitive information. But there's a variety of information you can tag. Virtually anything you'd like to tag can be tagged. And this is different than screen recording. Screen recording has been around for many years, and we do that as well. So when you replay the call, you'll see the screen activity as the agent's navigating, during the call and during their wrap time. But this is different. This is basically, we're just looking the code. Every time someone enters a field, the application or the screen will send little pieces of code back to the workstation, and we grab those, and at that point we tag that data to the call. So just to show you a little bit more about how this works, this is just a sample of an order information screen. So I'll walk you through how this works. An agent would start the order by clicking on the General tab, and your applications may be configured completely different, but it can be tailored easily to your apps. At that point, we're going to, in the interaction, you can see the interaction below. On the timeline, we're going to mark that this order has been started. Then, at that same point, any of the information that's already on the screen that you'd like to capture can be captured with that event. So in this case, we're capturing order ID and customer ID. Then as the agent goes through, completes the order, they're going to be typing in additional information, getting additional information from the customer. And then at the end of that order, when the agent clicks OK or commits that order, however it happens in your applications, you can collect the additional information, and you can see that it all gets tagged to the recording below. So at this point, we're tagging the order type. This was an upgrade. We're tagging the value of the order, $395.50, and we're also keeping the additional information. So you can tag as much information as you'd like to the recording, and this becomes very valuable, and we'll get into how this helps you focus on the important calls. This is just a quote from Paul Stockford at Settletree Research, who recently studied desktop analytics, and specifically what we call VPI Fact Finder. Really, truly believes this is revolutionizing contact center analytics, and because what it does is it delivers significant value in a short period of time through identifying the information that is important to you, and then delivering that up into actionable improvements. So once you have all the information that's important to you, and it's captured not only from the screens, but also from your ACD, so CTI information, metadata, things like that. We're capturing the audio from that call, the video. There's no audio on emails or web chat, so we're capturing the video, and then we're capturing information that was populated on the application, so screen data and events. All this is assembled together into what we call an interaction. So what we're looking for when you're trying to solve first contact resolution, we're looking for repeat interactions, right? And we'll get into what makes up a repeat interaction in first contact resolution. It's different in a lot of environments. When you're looking to optimize handle time, there's certain types of interactions you're looking for, and we'll get into those. As well with sales acceleration and collections optimization, you're looking for certain types of high-value, important calls to you that you can really focus on finding out why these are occurring, and focus on training and improving not only your agent's skill gaps, but improving the processes behind each of those. So the system's automatically going to bucket the calls that are important to you. You just define what type of calls or interactions are important to you, and the system will bucket those for you. So with first contact resolution, what do you need to know to really measure it accurately, right? There's three things you need to know. Who is the customer? And typically at that point, it can be customer ID, case ID, things like that. Why are they contacting you? What is the reason they're calling you or contacting you via email or web chat? And when did they last contact you for the same reasons? Equipped with these three things, you can really accurately measure first contact resolution. So in a help desk environment, it's a lot easier than in other environments. So in a help desk environment, you're looking for case ID or a service ticket ID or an incident ID. At that point, as you can see here, the system is automatically pulling all interactions or calls together with the same case ID. So I've highlighted here, case ID 149-3295. It's looking for that, and it's automatically assembling those repeat interactions. And what you do in the system is just define the number of days that's important to you. So if you want to know all repeat interactions within 30 days, you can define that. You may have some departments that want to do it, within 7 days or 14 days. That's completely definable. But the system's going to automatically pull together all calls that came in within that time period, within the last 30 days or the last 14 days or 7 days or whatever you'd like to see. And then what's neat is you can drill down and listen to why these are coming in, right? So you're now not just evaluating one segment of a call, you're evaluating the entire customer experience over time. And this gives you a lot more insight into what you can really do to improve first contact resolution, or what's causing those repeat calls. In other environments, in other service environments, you need more than just case ID or service ticket ID. You really need two things. So customer ID, right? So you pull customer ID from the application screens, and in the past you used to have to do API programming to your CRM system to get customer ID. Now it's as easy as defining what you want to pull directly from the screens, and that'll automatically on every interaction get tagged to your recordings. So now it's really easy to get customer ID, and then reason codes. Those are two things you need. So who the customer is, and why are they contacting you. And then what it's going to do is every time that customer calls for the same reason within X number of days, together, and just like you see here with the case IDs, where the cases are being pulled together, you're going to get all the interactions that came in from that customer for the same reason. And again, you can drill down and figure out why this customer is calling again or emailing again for the same reason. So very powerful, and what's nice is this is very accurate. So screen analytics, 100% of the time when they enter that screen or when that customer ID pops up on the agent's application, you're going to get that tag to the recording. And then what you can do is you can use that information. Once you have your high-value calls and things like that, you can do further analysis. So how do we optimize handle time? And there's been within the industry, I'd say the last few years, there's been kind of a big shift away from handle time. I'm seeing it less and less in scorecards, less and less in reports, and it's still a huge contributor to cost. So what we're saying here is, handle time overall, just as a single metric to measure agents on, yeah, it may not be the best metric, right? Because it's a very efficiency-focused and not very effectiveness focused. However, there are definitely opportunities within every contact center that I go into to reduce handle time without affecting customer satisfaction, and that's the key. And that's the reason why a lot of organizations were starting to take out handle time from their scorecards and calculations, is because they didn't want that to affect customer satisfaction, and it was. I mean, agents were hanging up on customers and things like that. But there's, within the processes, call handling processes, or within certain types of calls, there are tremendous room for improving handle time. So what we're able to do, once you've implemented desktop analytics, you can now analyze handle time by interaction type, right? So we may want to know, may want to look at what are the various handle times for different types of calls, for different reasons, and really take a closer look. Yeah, we may not, incentivize the agent on handle time anymore, but as a company, let's look at handle time by reason. Let's look at it by products or services offered, things like that. And that's all now possible with desktop analytics. You can also analyze handle time by key processes within their interactions. And one of the key processes that Mohan referred to, where they saved a tremendous amount of money, was after call wrap time. They were focusing a lot of their time, less time focusing on improving after call wrap time, and they found huge savings or potential savings there. So the ability to know when in that interaction the call has ended and when the actual wrap time, what's nice about desktop analytics is it follows the agent through their applications even after the call is over. So it's very valuable not only for agents who take calls, but for back office employees who are navigating through various applications. And you want to measure the time between key processes. How long does it take to complete an order? How long does it take an agent to upsell? Things like that. How long is the average wrap time? Let's look at handle time by agent, by group, by client. What we mean by client is you can also do it if you're an outsourcer and you have multiple clients, or you handle multiple different clients. You may want to look at how are we doing across clients. So taking a look at it, and Mohan mentioned it's key to look at these trends over time. So not just 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, but over a few months to really get a good idea of where you can improve on. You can also analyze call flow to determine the root cause of calls with multiple holds, long hold time, multiple transfers. And this is coming from typically the ACD or from CTI information. So many of you may already be able to do this, and I highly encourage you to start looking at calls with transfers and holds and long holds and things like that. Start there, even if you can't analyze handle time or look at handle time by call type or reason or product or processes within your interactions or within your calls. Start with analyzing, calls with multiple transfers. You're going to find a lot of room for improvement just by looking at those. So, sales and collections is key. We do a lot of local events. We just did a call center optimization forum in Phoenix on Tuesday. And there's always sales departments and collections departments. And, first contact resolution may not be a key metric there, but desktop analytics can really help you identify the very high value, the calls that are important to you in a sales environment. So you may want to identify successful upsell and cross-sell attempts. And the key here is to listen to those calls from your top performing agents and find out what are those best practices, what are those tactics being used by your best agents, and use those and train your other agents on how to use those best practices, how to use those tactics, things like that. You may want to look at incomplete sales attempts, so where an order was started or an upsell attempt was started, but it was canceled or not finished, right? So the desktop analytics is going to tell you that, and it's going to bucket those calls for you so you can figure out why we're not completing sales. You may want to look at why credits are being issued, right? So if credits over a certain amount are being issued, you want to listen to those interactions and figure out, maybe they're unnecessarily your agents are unnecessarily giving out credit. So those are key types of interactions that are very important in a sales environment and can really help you boost your sales by applying the best practices used by the best agents and training all of your other agents on those best practices. Similar in a collections environment, some of the key interactions you might want to analyze include calls with long handle times where there was no promise to pay, right? So why are we spending all this time on a call or an interaction and we're not even getting the promise to pay? Calls with quick hang-ups, right? Are there certain language, is there certain types of tactics that we can use that the best agents are using where they're not getting hung up on quickly, right? And apply those phrases or those tactics and train other agents on that. High collections amount. So you may want, again, you're looking at your high performers and you're trying to basically get all of your other agents up to that high performance mark of your best agents. And it's interesting, in this industry, I get so many questions about, well, do you have any benchmark reports on this and versus other people in our industry? And I always recommend benchmarking to your highest performing agents. So it's possible with your current systems in place, with your current processes, to achieve those results. And the goal is to try to get the average performers and really focus on training them up to the highest performance by using those same best practices that the top agents are using. Instant payments you might want to look at what agents are successfully getting instant payments. Why are certain agents waiving more late fees than other agents, things of that nature? And another one is promise to pays with no collection down the road. So over time, we're not seeing that there's a collection made. Again, that's possible because we're able to pull all the interactions together over time. So this is really the key, and I mentioned earlier that most organizations fall down in this area here, is turning these metrics. All right, you've measured these metrics. You now have an idea of how you're doing over time and things. But really, drilling down, finding out the core issues, and then taking action on those metrics or on trying to improve the root cause is really where most organizations fall down. So we've tried to make that easy for you by creating templates of business rules where you can either tag that call for quality monitoring to do more root cause analysis. You can populate desktop tickers, scorecards, reports, and I'll show you examples of each of these. You can automatically assign coaching and e-learning to the desktop, so they can take coaching during downtime or coaching if needed to even continue taking calls or emails or web chat. You can automatically have rules send out alerts and notifications as early warning indicators. And you may want to also use those same rules to define what types of interactions you want to keep. So you could record all of your interactions full time, and if you don't want to keep them, if they're not important and nothing valuable happened in that call, then you can use that and say, all right, we don't want to. You want until that interaction actually takes place. So we always recommend recording everything full time ahead of time, and then you can just dispose of those interactions that aren't important to you. What's nice within our system is even though you're getting rid of the interactions, the screen video, the audio recording file, we still keep all that data associated with the audio and video so you can do reporting and analysis on the events and the data that you captured with that recording. So very powerful there. So traditionally, this is what quality monitoring looks like. And this is the majority of customers that I speak with and work with are still doing random selective quality monitoring. We mentioned earlier, 3 to 5 calls per agent per month. And what you're getting is a lot of very low-value calls that aren't really coachable, calls that aren't really telling you, what the root cause of the issues you're trying to solve are. So where we're seeing is a big shift towards more focused, targeted quality monitoring. And what the beauty of this is you already have people evaluating your interactions. Why not use those same resources to evaluate high-value calls versus just scoring the agent? And I'll show you an example of the beauty of this. Is traditionally, here's an example. An agent takes 3,600 calls per month. The supervisor evaluates 3 calls per agent per month, getting a very low sampling rate, one where you can't really make accurate business decisions on how to improve those metrics or what to do, what processes to change. Typically, we'll give feedback to the agent, 7 days later, 30 days later, and often we train agents on everything. So we'll take even the best performing agents, put everyone in a classroom, and train them on everything that our QA analysts found or supervisors found within the calls during that period. Where we're really seeing the shift too, and several of our customers are already doing this, is focused, targeted quality monitoring. So same amount of calls taken per agent, 3,600 calls per agent. Now you're going to sample 3 out of 200 canceled accounts or repeat contacts or new orders. Whatever you're trying to solve, whatever calls are important to you, those high-value calls, you're going to do a sample of those calls. The result is a much higher sampling rate and a much more you can now make much more accurate decisions. That sampling rate of 1.5 is a lot higher than many of our elections, and we elect politicians on less than that. So you can make a lot of very accurate decisions on what needs to be improved within the customer experience and within your business processes. And I'll get into the targeted automated training, but based on what happens in those interactions and how they're scored, you're automatically going to send out training and coaching to those agents who need it to improve their skill gaps. Another thing you could do with the business rules is not only tag calls for QA evaluation to determine the root cause, but also take those metrics and populate them into real-time or near real-time tickers. So these tickers are always on. They live either above or on the side or below. Think of it as a CNN ticker that your agents, your supervisors, your managers, and executives see. And the beauty of these tickers are that they're completely customizable for different groups within your organization. So just this alone, being able to show agents where they are in real time or near real time, and with desktop analytics, this processing of the data that you're capturing takes place just right after the call takes place, and then it can be used in these reports, and it can be used to schedule the QA, and it can be used to do all the various actions. But this alone, we've seen a tremendous boost, whether it be sales, whether it be FCR, whether it be collections, whether it be handle time, just by showing agents how they are performing with respect to their group and their targets. And as you can see here, the color coding is very valuable because you can see, all right, where do I need to drill through? Where am I underperforming? And agents love that, right? And managers as well, to be able to drill through and figure out what an increase in this metric is causing on another metric. And Mohan mentioned that when you tweak one thing, it typically has a drastic effect on other metrics. And here you can see that. So as you're trying to improve things, how is it affecting other metrics? And these are fantastic because you can literally drag and drop different metrics into the tickers and the scorecard. So very powerful here to be able to provide this up-to-the-minute timely information to everyone in your organization. Here's another way. If you're interested in looking over time, trending reports, things like that, everyone has to create what we call My VPI. It's essentially like a My Yahoo or My Google, where you can create different profiles for different groups, and then if you allow them, they can customize those profiles to see what they're interested in. And as as certain thresholds get hit or goals are met, you can send out training and coaching and notifications. Here's an interesting quote about training is 60% of all repeat calls are training or process driven. So those are things that we can have an impact on within our contact center. That other 40% may be outside of the contact center, right? We may need to get marketing involved. Maybe they're giving misleading marketing messages. Maybe we need to get shipping or logistics involved because people aren't getting the products on time, or it may be a product development issue, right? So there may be something that needs to be corrected, and that's why when Mohan mentioned, having the support of the entire organization and the executives on board is really key here, because while you can focus on training and closing skill gaps, and you can focus on processes within the contact center, the ability to make changes after you determine what if it's something that's not really within the contact center that's causing these repeat calls or repeat interactions. You want to have good relationships with the other departments to really be able to improve the root causes. But within your contact center, the beauty of targeted coaching, and this doesn't replace classroom training. You're always going to have classroom training or virtual WebEx training if you have at-home agents. But this web-based coaching is a great supplement to that. So if agents fall below certain performance thresholds, they'll automatically receive coaching assigned by you. So it could be a question on a QA form, right, that if they don't score this well, then send them this coaching. It could be a FCR metric. It could be anything that you're tracking within the system can assign them coaching or notifications or quizzes, PowerPoints, multimedia, videos, things of that nature. And what the beauty of this is it tracks everything that the agent does within those coaching assignments. So it'll track how long, if you create your training content, what we call SCORM, SCORM compliance, which is kind of the standard for e-learning content. It'll track how long each agent spent within certain questions. So you can see where they're really having trouble, struggling, what questions, they spent this long trying to figure this out and then they got it wrong. So you can really track very detailed the level of how your agents or employees are understanding the coaching. And even if it's just a PDF or a video, you can track which agents viewed that video and how long did they spend viewing that video. And what the beauty of it is we integrate with the majority of workforce management systems. So typically our customers will create a coaching piece of work within workforce management, and during that time agents are able to take self-paced training that was assigned to them based on where they're not doing well. When it's time to get back, that work period is over, or workforce management says you got to get back on the calls or the emails or web chats, at that time it'll pause where they were in that coaching assignment, and then they can resume it during the next coaching period. So pretty powerful tool here, and this is included with our quality monitoring products. So our goal is for all our customers to really leverage coaching and notifications, because without that, if you're just monitoring calls but you're not coaching to the issues and trying to close skill gaps, you're not going to see the results that you're intending to see. This is just an example of how you use that same rules engine to, if a group or department, if something is going above or below threshold, it'll automatically send notifications and alerts to management, and from an agent level, could be as targeted as if a certain button or a certain screen is entered within the application, or it could be a metric threshold. In this case, the agent cancels the VIP customer account. We want to inform the customer save team so they can call that customer back and try to save that customer. Or maybe a product or service that was canceled by a VIP customer. You can have notifications sent out that way as well. So very early warning indicators so that you can that day or even quicker make changes that are going to prevent those issues from occurring again. And that's all I had. Appreciate your time, and appreciate Mohan and Prem for the wonderful introduction, and look forward to the opportunity to working with you. And if you have any questions at all, I'd be happy to answer those now, or you can send me an email or give me a call, and look forward to the opportunity to work with you. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Patrick. We do have a question for you. It's how easy is it to implement desktop analytics, and what is involved?
Yeah, it's actually very easy. It's one of the easiest analytics tools to implement, and that's why Paul Stockford at Saddletree, after researching this tool, was really impressed with how easy it is. And essentially, you basically draw boxes around the fields that you're interested in capturing. At that point, every time an agent enters that field, any agent, it's going to capture that information. Really, where the time, what takes the most time is figuring out what information you want captured from your application. So we sit down with our customers and we figure out, all right, what are the key metrics you're trying to improve? What are the key initiatives? What issues or business problems are you trying to solve? Then what metrics roll up to those business problems? And then figure out, all right, what do we want to capture from your applications? What processes within your call handling? What values do you want? Sales values, promise to pay values, whatever it is that you're interested in collecting. That usually takes the most time, but from a technology standpoint, it's really easy to implement. So that's a great question. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Patrick. Got a question for Mohan. How do you maintain quality, productivity, and customer satisfaction with multiple sites?
Oh, thanks, Prem. That's a good question. I think the first thing is to bring the key stakeholders, if you have multiple sites, is to really agree on the metrics that you're measuring. Because all things being considered equal, it's really important to first get everybody together, depending on the different time zones that you have the sites working in, is to have the key stakeholders to measure that and come to an agreement as to what are the metrics that you need to measure for quality or for productivity, and really try and come to a consensus or an agreement with the underlying theme. Is this going to benefit our customers? Is this going to benefit the overall mission and vision of our company? And again, this is where the focus is to try and get everybody together, and that's quite hard to get stakeholders. Call center people are very busy themselves trying to take care of the day-to-day operations. It's fundamental to understand the productivity metrics that Patrick and I talked about in concert with the quality as well, because one needs the other to achieve that balance. And really the customer satisfaction or the customer delight metrics that you're going to gain visibility to will also give you the ability to develop a scorecard. And again, you're measuring against a period of time in history, and also within your peer group, whether it's financial services or utilities or collections like Patrick talked about, is try and start with a starting point and understand what are the critical elements to this process. And this process is where you're going to really force yourself to ask these questions. What is this a function of? What is TSF a function of? What is net income a function of? And that's going to be an ongoing challenge, and it varies. Some people do it quarterly, some people do it at the end of the year, the beginning of the year. It all depends on you and who's actually going to champion that effort. You see, it's really trying to find a champion to this, and this is where the Lean Six Sigma methodology really ties in nicely as I teach it and practice it in other organizations. It's really to have somebody champion that. And be very passionate about bringing all the stakeholders in these sites together. Ideally, you would like to have a champion in each site and a champion for this project. Does that answer the question?
Yes. We just got a high volume of questions coming in, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ask you one last question here, and then any other questions, the attendees can feel free to email Mohan directly, and he'll be happy to answer any of these questions because there's just too many for me to keep up with right now. So the last question, yeah, that's good. So the last question is occupancy and abandonment rates still relevant metrics?
Yes, I would still use that as a secondary metric, occupancy, and what was the other metric?
The abandonment rates.
Abandonment rates.
Abandonment rates, yes.
Yes, because those are indicators of what's really happening within your contact center, and that most always ties into the availability of your frontliners to answer the call. So what is that a function of? It could be a function of workforce management. It could be a function of your IVR design. It could be a function of your portal that could be down or being serviced. It could be a myriad of factors impacting that. If your frontline managers are aware of these conditions that are causing that, they can remedy rather quickly. However, a condition that increases 70, 75, 80% in terms of occupancy and abandonment rate that reaches dangerous levels beyond 3 to 5%, that is a problem, right? That should be like early warning indicators Patrick talked about. So you can build that into your system to alert your frontline managers, alert your supervisors, your call center managers. So I would not ignore these. There's usually a story when you see a trend when they reach dangerous levels. So don't discount the fact that there is always a story behind either one of these metrics. But I would keep that as a secondary metric during operational meetings. Thank you. That was a very good question.
Great, thank you. So we'll basically wrap it up for today, and I would like to thank both Mohan and Patrick for the excellent presentations you guys presented. Just on a final note, is I've been getting a lot of requests from the attendees for the copies of the presentations. So what we're going to do is the actual webinar itself will be available via recorded version. So basically everything you see on your screen today, we'll send you a link where you'd be able to download that and view it at your own convenience. It would take a few days for that to be ready, and once it's ready, we will email you the link to access that. And again, I would like to thank everyone for coming out today, and hopefully we'll see you at the next ICCA webinars. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.